In the shadow she lurks, a digital sage. Her words cut through like a sharpened blade. Political cow, her voice brings rage. A rebel in the neon-born parade. With a keyboard she wields her might, piercing lies with truth's own light. Drifting through the endless night, exposing wrongs to make them right. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meets. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show. A beacon where the lost clouds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show. A beacon where the lost grounds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word.
Couple of questions here in the chat here. Benjamin's asking, if a tariff is successful and you gain local industry, you lose the tax benefit of the tariff, no longer collected on imports. It's self-defeating. You're right, and that's why there's like a number of things happening in parallel. You're right, that revenue would potentially get less and less over time, and will that be outweighed by what's collected in corporate income tax? I don't know. I'd have to look at somebody's models on that to see how that balances out. But the end goal or the end outcome that you're after is more self-sufficiency in the United States, more real employment in the United States, quality employment, and you've achieved that. You've achieved that with this policy. You are after that, and you have to continuously work with data as it comes in to adjust and make sure you're not taking self-defeating steps, as you're mentioning, just optimizing one part of the overall system that makes up the economy. And I think that's something that's been lacking, honestly, for the past 4 years. All these one-off actions taken by Biden have led us, the one-off actions have been, let's keep printing, honestly. Over $4 trillion printed. I mean, it was not we didn't really have any choice during pandemic era, we had to like save jobs and save companies and so forth. Yes, there was waste in that, but nobody had a better answer. But now, when Biden got in office, you did have time to make some decisions. And so year after year, they successively increased spend. Federal government spend, went up significantly during that time frame. Anyway, wow, this is humiliating. Yeah, Adam, I feel humiliated when I think of what happened during the Biden era as well. It's pretty ridiculous stuff. Thanks to President Trump, America's back. You're absolutely right. Always blaming Biden. Well, there's a distinction to be made. I don't know if there's a blame here. There's a distinction when there's criticism of the current policy. It's like you have to understand how come these things are being changed. So, for instance, CHIPS Act. Why incentivize companies and say, I will print hundreds of billions for you to come build a factory here? I will print that money. Or through this tariff policy, all of a sudden you have Taiwan Semiconductor investing hundreds of billions because they want to be in the United States. So there's a difference in approach, a difference in a mindset and outcome that happens along with that. All right, the only thing here that no one, Leo says, looks at is why we buy mostly overseas products in America. Sucks as I know the truth. Choice to buy what we can afford. Yeah, affordability is definitely a challenge with that. So do the margins come down? What kind of makes that up? I don't know, because but Leo, when I think about it, the manufacturing, even as white collar positions, I hope at some point office based staff start to come back to the United States. Let's just focus on manufacturing. As that starts to come back, it's going to come back way more automated. It's not going to be one-to-one. If you have 1,000 folks in a manufacturing facility overseas, that doesn't mean those 1,000 then come back into the United States in terms of jobs. Maybe 10%, 20%, 30% of that comes back, and that facility has 300 people versus 1,000. But the level of automation and level of sophistication is significantly higher. Those jobs, those 300 that come back, are higher skilled, higher paying jobs than perhaps. So, there's a differentiator there that takes place. That labor arbitrage maybe is not what we're after. They'll bring them back, gives the companies an opportunity to invest and automate them, and maybe even achieve better margins than they were able to do overseas. They just don't have a driving force making them come up with those changes. Near term, there will be an inflationary effect on it. I hope it's not significant, because the last batch, due to money printing, was very tough. But I don't think that taking these types of actions that mess with supply demand, unless you make these massive increases to money supply, I don't think it's going to result in the same level of inflation. It's not going to go away, though. It's still something that has to be watched. Federal Reserve didn't move on rates. They're not cutting them, right? Well, they said they may only do a couple this year. I don't know. That's still to be seen. Police cam reactions. Hey, I got to check out that channel. That sounds fun. Check out police cam reactions, folks. Anyway, let's see what he says. I don't see why we are worried about saving companies like Ford and Chevy when they're building everything in different country. That's what I didn't get during COVID-19. Yeah, we need to have them bring it back. Bring it back, automate it. You look at Tesla's factories that are in Austin, Texas, and they've got robots fixing robots. It's crazy to see. But higher skilled workforce, higher training, and a lot of workers still required to maintain those robots. It takes people out of the way of high risk situations, having to be a part of that assembly line and so forth. Adam says, my child has a different mindset when he shifts his pants. It doesn't make him a genius. Okay. Thanks for sharing. The U.S. economy rebounded better than most other countries after COVID. That is true. Everything's relative, right? That's why the dollar is still strong. But there's a lot of trends going on out there, de-dollarization and so forth, that may not have the dollar sustaining its strength. And I'll bring up something in a little bit here. An interview we had with the CEO of Noble Gold that I think is pretty important stuff on some of those trends. Let's see what else we got here. A couple more. We have the lowest inflation of countries post-COVID. Now we get inflation for no reason. Inflation started to tick up late last year, and you look at the continued policies of money printing and so forth. That's why we're going after reducing the scale and size of government. Because when you have agencies that went from, say, 50 billion of budget to 400 billion in budget before and after Biden's presidency, you start to scratch your head as to why did that happen? Was that necessary? Right? And they need to dial that stuff back significantly now, right? Guy who understands nothing about modern manufacturing. Yeah, so Trump may not, but he'll get experts to do it, right? He'll get experts to do it. Let's go through an interview that we had here recently with CEO of Noble Gold. And I think it's pretty important stuff in terms of what we were just talking about: manufacturing, inflation, de-dollarization trends. Let's get this rolling. So I had an opportunity to interview him. We'll just kind of like watch together here for the next segment. All right. So Collin, I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to join us today. Give you a moment here to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Robert.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be on your show. Collin Plume, CEO, Noble Gold Investments, My Digital Money, and a few other. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and a lot of people know me from the last 16 years. I've been in the precious metals industry, focusing on physical gold, silver, platinum, palladium. I really got started in the education space. I felt that a lot of people didn't have any education on precious metals, the physical metals, like the way that we did it. And there was a lot of bad information out there. So I started Noble Gold with the premise that we're going to focus on education and spending time with clients and really focusing on the customer service aspect and not trying to rush people through a decision, and focusing on those things is really how we grew the company. And we, grew it from small, few people to, we've sold over $2 billion in gold and silver. And we've shipped over $1.2 billion in gold and silver to people's doorsteps. And we continue to educate people, and it's just an exciting industry, obviously, with everything happening from the tariffs to the dollar devaluation, de-dollarization, everything happening. It's coming to the forefront. And now it's much easier to get interviews than it was 16 years ago. So I'm excited to be here and to dive into some of the things happening. And I also, my experience, I was in commercial real estate for 6 years before I got into precious metals. So I've been in the wealth preservation space for a long time. And I've really always looked at, assets. So from real estate to the stock market, I believe in diversification, which is what I really talk about the most, is just not having all your eggs in one basket. And it's something I do personally. I have multiple businesses. I own precious metals, I own real estate, I own stocks, and a number of different things to be diversified, because I don't think anybody can predict where the markets are, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And so, excited to talk about everything happening from this new administration to, what's happened in the past. But it's, I think it's a very interesting time for the gold business.
I appreciate that. That was an awesome introduction. And I think this hits on a very high interest topic for our group of subscribers here. So, I mean, let's jump into it. I mean, you hit a few areas that, we want to expand on a little bit more. Let's start with tariffs. You mentioned that. I mean, we've talked with our subscribers about, I guess for a while now, there's some economic indicators, leading indicators that, are showing a little bit of a struggle, or, things may not be inflation, for instance. It was a little stickier, it seems. So the anticipated rate cuts didn't come as expected necessarily. But now, of course, tariffs are the big question. How have these recent tariffs highlighted the importance of gold as a stable investment vehicle, especially with the market volatility that we're seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, you look at what the experts are saying, the billionaires. You have a guy like Paul Tudor Jones last year was saying in November of last year, all roads lead to inflation right now. And why he believes that is because if you look at where inflation is sitting in the high twos, And everything we've tried to do to get inflation down, it really hasn't worked. It's very sticky right now. And then you add the idea of tariffs, which, if you go down the line, the idea of tariffs means that the goods that come in this country are going to get taxed, and the people in this country are going to end up paying for the tax, right? You're paying more for items, and you're seeing steel prices up 30%. You're seeing aluminum up, 15%. You go down the line, computers, all across the board, things are going to cost more in this new environment. And yes, there's revenue that will come in. They anticipate 142 billion in combined tariff revenue this year. So that's good. That'll help us. But big picture in the short term, it will lead to inflation. And I believe that this administration is a high growth, high inflation government. I think that's what they're attempting to do. So every proposal that's coming out, buying Greenland, having tariffs, even making cuts in the government in the short term, there's a cost, right? And so there will be heavy expenses. Studies show that the average U.S. household will pay this year in tariff increases anywhere from $1,072 to about $2,100 and increase the cost of goods. So everybody is sort of going to pay for it. And then Europe is trying to do a counter tariff. So they're trying to do tariffs against us. So there is going to be this change of ideas of what people are doing and how they're spending. They will adjust. People will hopefully buy more goods that are from this country and avoid. But for a long time, it won't be that way. We're just conditioned. We've been this way since the late 70s, early 80s. We started shipping everything overseas because we thought that was better for us to pay a lower price. And now the idea is maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe we should make more here and pay more for it. So it's not a new idea. Before 1913, before we had, taxes in this country, we lived off tariffs. President McKinley, which Trump has a fascination with, that's how we kept the government going, was tariffs. It was one of the ways we kept the government going. So it's not a new idea, but it hasn't been around for, over 100 and so odd years. And so now we're sort of reacting, and the stock market has reacted. We've seen, all the gains over the last, 6 months have been pulled back. NASDAQ is down, S&P is down. So your traditional kind of equity safe havens are struggling, and they're trying to figure out where the market's going to be. So we're going to have some winners and some losers with the tariffs that are happening.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, in terms of performance, gold has performed very well in these, fluctuating markets. I don't know, just your thoughts on, leveraging gold as an asset to kind of hang on to as we continue, because the tariff question and some of these other fluctuations, they're not going to go away. This seems like it's going to be policy point.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah. And I think people are getting accustomed to it. And that's going to take some time. Gold is up year to date 14%. It's up from January of last year to today. It's up 46%. It broke its all-time high of $3,000 an ounce, which was a real psychological number. I've been in the business long enough to remember when gold broke $1,000 an ounce. So 1,000 and 2,000. These 1,000 barriers are psychological barriers. Since gold has broke 2,000, it moved to 3,000 very quickly. It didn't take long for that to happen. And, I think it's a flight to safety. That's the first part. Regardless of the tariffs, gold would have gone up. But obviously, I think the idea with gold being an item that would be affected by inflation, in terms of it's a good inflationary item to hold during an inflationary period. So as you're seeing inflation sit at 3%, 2.9%, it makes sense for people to want to hold gold. And, you just look at the investment landscape. You look at the 10-year treasury trading at 4.2, 4.25. And I always look at it, if the 10-year trading there, the banks are giving you money at 4% or 3.5%. What's the true inflationary number? What's the real number you need to make on your money to keep up with the cost of goods? So if the bank's willing to give it to you at 3.5, I would say minimum you got to make 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, right? So that's why I think gold, up so dramatically. People are looking at it and saying, well, I need to make a higher return than what the treasury or the banks are offering me. And then they're just crossing off all the investments that they're looking at right now. And I think that's why gold has been really popular, coupled with the fact that central banks have done something that's unprecedented, and that for 3 years in a row, they've bought over 1,000 tons of gold. And so when you have the world, they're getting their U.S. Treasury bonds in, they don't renew those bonds, and then they go out and buy gold, they're sending a message to the world too, right? Like, I want to get away from U.S. debt. I want to get in something tangible. I want a better return. So it's simpler than people think, but I do think that the world buying so much gold over the last 3 years has set a new precedent in terms of fiat money. They're basically saying all fiat money is trash. All fiat money is not worth what it's supposed to be worth. We can't keep money there. We can't keep it in, we don't want any of that debt. What's the next thing to buy? And so that's why I think they've been buying a tremendous amount of gold. And that's everywhere. Russia, China, Poland did a massive buy of gold last quarter of last year. And they're all buying gold, and mostly net holders, little bit of selling, but for the most part, they're typically long kind of holders of the metal.
And I think that's another important point. There's inflation, there's massive demand, as you're outlining, and it's leading towards devaluation of currencies in general as well, with the de-dollarization trends that you're talking about. So again, that's I think another important dimension of it that's coming into play here. I see that you got is that a bar of gold in front of you there?
This is not a real bar of gold.
Okay.
I typically do have gold in front of me. This would be worth a lot of money. I'd probably have to have,
holy cow, that thing's like,
yeah, I'd have to have 10 security guards here for this. This is I do usually have gold in my interviews, but today I wasn't in a place to have it. But yeah, no, I always have physical gold on me and in some type of form. It's something that makes me happy, holding on to physical gold. And I think for anyone that hasn't, I talk to people every day about investing, and there is something different that happens when you get into the physical form and you actually take control. That is probably my favorite thing about this business, is the person that gets it is in control. And I think in a world where it feels very out of control, the idea that you can hold your own gold and silver, that you have control of your own investment, gives people a lot of ease, makes them feel better that they're controlling the asset themselves. They don't have to trust a bank or an institution, and they're not paying these unbelievable fees. You just have it. And I think it's a simple thing, but at the end of the day, people do want to have that level of control over their retirement. And that's, a big part of us is educating people that you can put gold and silver, the real thing. Now, this isn't a real gold bar, but real gold bars and silver bars, you can put them in your IRA. And every day people are retiring and they're taking their distributions in the actual gold and silver that they own. They can take it in cash and we'll buy back the gold and silver from them. But a lot of times people just want the gold. And so we ship the gold to their doorstep. So you're not buying a stock, you're not buying an ETF, you're actually buying the real thing. We just help you get there. If it's in an IRA, we help you. You can call us with questions, but you're buying real physical gold and silver, and not a stock or a leveraged account or an ETF.
Yeah, and I think there's also just, as I understand it, additional demand in the market in general for access to physical gold, rather than what's been on, futures markets or what have you. Like demand to actually hold physical gold
Yeah.
is even heightened now.
Yeah, what happened a month ago in the London exchange, the London Bullion Exchange, is that people, partly because they were worried about the tariffs, but they wanted to get their gold here in the US. So there was this huge call for contracts in the London Bullion Exchange that were supposed to have all the gold, and they're shipping it to New York, the Bank of New York, because people wanted it closer to home. What happened was the London exchange, they shipped a lot of gold, and at one point told people they had to wait for the gold. They didn't have it, and it created this hysteria because it was all the dollars that people paid were supposed to be backed by gold. And so when the London exchange said, hey, you have to wait, then it triggered like, wait a minute, they don't have all the gold. And so it created this just pandemonium. And I would be nervous too, because if I thought I had physical gold and it turns out they didn't have enough, which obviously they did not have enough. So it created this idea. And there's been this speculation since I've been in the business for 16 years, where they've said, contracts are not backed by physical gold, even though they're supposed to be. I've read reports that maybe it's like 100 to 1. So for 100 contracts, there's 1 ounce of gold. Well, the London exchange sort of proved, right, that they didn't have enough, and they told people just wait. And listen, nobody wants to wait for the thing they already own, right? They paid the price for it. So it created this unbelievable demand in the exchanges to have the physical gold. And that's part of the reason I think that even if you're going to buy gold on the exchange, you should still own some gold by yourself. You should own it by yourself, because you really can't ultimately trust that they're going to have enough. And that's the scary thing about owning some investments, is that at some point they reveal the veil and there's nothing there, and then you're caught with nothing. So that's the simplistic thing about what we do that people like, is that they don't have to worry about that. They know that they got the physical gold, which, there's no middleman there, right? So it's a nice advantage.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's been some regulatory scrutiny, first trust investigations on them in terms of transparency. So this is something that's, I think becoming more and more in focus from a regulatory standpoint. And so I guess as you're talking about, you're outlining the transparency that y'all maintain, with clients. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, I like the vein in which you're talking. Talk a little bit more about the education component and how people can get more information on that.
So
around
what
it,
we
just
do
as
is
we're broadcasting here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the way we've built the business is that everybody gets, a representative that's their person, and that person has a team behind them to help you through the process. So whether it's filling out the IRA paperwork, which can be a little cumbersome, or we've streamlined that whole process to make it easy. We help you with the custodian to help you move the funds over. So we do all that heavy lifting for you. But the biggest part is, like, we send out PDFs, books. This is my book, Silver is the New Oil. So this is available. This is an education book on silver and the commodity, and like what it can be used for, and some of the charts and graphs. So we have things like this. We have excerpts from the book. We have videos. I have a YouTube channel that talks about. And what we've done is try to streamline it so it's little snippets of information, 2 to 5 minute videos to educate you on precious metals, and with you, and then your representative, and then those videos, and then the PDFs. If you do all of those things, you'll really have a great understanding of what we do. And that's really the idea. And when I got into the business, what I saw was a lot of heavy marketing and a push for aggressive, fast, offering free $10,000, $20,000, and what in metal. And what, if you pulled that back, what you found out was that they were just selling very overpriced coins. And so I didn't want to do the business that way. I wanted to focus on the education. I wanted to focus on bullion coins and bars, which have the highest weight, the highest purity. I mean, this is what the banks buy. So we sell the same items that COMEX and all those places sell. And even during the pandemic, I was competing with COMEX for silver, because we had a big shortage. And I was buying silver from mints and competing with COMEX to get it to clients. So we focus on the education piece and also focus on getting them the bullion that has the highest weight, the highest purity, so that wherever the market is, up, down, or if they have to go somewhere else in the world, those items are desirable and able to be purchased by anybody anywhere in the world. So you go to Dubai or Mexico, wherever you're going in the world, the US, everyone will buy the items that we sell because they're the ones that the banks buy. They're the most desired. And so educating people on why we sell these items and how we do it, that's a big part of our job, and it's a continuing process. And that's really how we built the business. And if you look at our reviews, thousands of 5-star reviews, A+ rating with the BBB, we've all focused day to day on creating that experience. And so when you see a thing like First Trust, which is an ETF that's basically, they've built their business on, giving financial advisors trips and offering all these freebies, and it clouds the fact that they're, sort of an average ETF. These are the things that I try to educate people on, is that people think their financial advisor and all these people are only looking at, the best possible returns. And a lot of times we're seeing it because they're getting fined, is that a lot of it is just based on the fact that they're working hand in hand, and they're seeing this conjunction where it's not so much them offering the best product, it's the way that they're selling it and packaging it. And so people do have to be careful, because you really, at the end of the day, it's your money, and you want to make sure you get the most out of it, and you want to get the most bang for your buck. So when I see these things like First Data, I'd like to bring it to people's attention and just say, you should always take a step back. You should always be able to take your time when you're making a financial decision. You shouldn't be rushed into anything, and you want to take a look at the product that you're buying, just like us. Take a look at us, look at our reviews. I urge people to do that. And that's really how we built the business, is sort of counterintuitive to the gold space, is that we want people to feel great about it, because we know we're going to be together for a long time. We're investing for years and years, and we want them to feel like the decision was there, and we didn't put a gun to their head and force them into it or offer them some free BS. So it's really an education process and a relationship building that we focus on.
I think that sounds fantastic. And folks, if you guys want to know more information, we'll have a link pinned as the top comment. It'll be in the description as well, to get access to more of these resources. But Collin, any final thoughts that you want to leave folks with here?
Yeah, I would just say, listen, it's not too late to learn, to get educated. Silver is still below its 1983 price. It's at $33 today. So every commodity in the world has skyrocketed. Silver's still there. I talk about it a lot in my book, Silver is the New Oil, which hit in December last year. And, I've been very lucky. It's hit number one in most of the categories I wanted, including commodities, investing, wealth. It all hit number one there. And it's a simple book. And I truly believe, if anyone takes away anything from this, is I think we're in the beginning of a super cycle for commodities. I do think the writing is on the wall. If you look at my book, you look at other evidence out there, there's a massive opportunity, bull run in the commodities market. And I'm just happy to be on. I hope people call in and learn and get educated. And we're here to give good information and help people. And ultimately, I think it's never too late to get educated on something new and to learn. And I think people will be surprised by Noble Gold and what we do, what we offer. So, but thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be on your show and obviously a sponsor.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, guys, paused it right there. Let me put up the QR code a little bit higher. Check out Collin's book, Silver is the New Oil. You can go to politicalcowgold.com as well, a quick link to get you over to see the resources and the education that Noble Gold provides. There are gold self-directed IRA products. I'm going to be taking a look at them myself here in a little bit. But I think it's an important thing. You look at, as was mentioned here, important topics that we all are talking about: tariffs, de-dollarization, the uncertainty that's out there in markets right now. They're forecasting that things look good, but do they really? It just takes one shoe to drop, and things are not quite where they needed to be. So check this stuff out. If you're on mobile, where I think we are targeting right now, you got a QR code on the screen. Just take a screenshot, and then in your Photos app, go back, tap on that QR code, and it'll take you to the link you see on the screen, which is just politicalcowgold.com. I guess with that, just want to close out the stream. Appreciate you guys listening in. Some pretty important stuff announced by Trump today. We'll be back online a little bit later in the evening to take some guest callers, put some questions out there, get people's real thoughts and real concerns as to what's going on out there. It's been 60 days of the second term of Trump's presidency, and a lot has happened. There's been quite a bit of activity, more so than I have ever seen in prior administrations. So with that, I'm sure there's been a lot of reaction and response by people to date. So again, thanks for joining in, folks. I will leave you with, of course, our theme song.
In the shadow she lurks, a digital sage. Her words cut through like a sharpened blade. Political cow, her voice brings rage. A rebel in the neon-born parade. With a keyboard she wields her might, piercing lies with truth's own light. Drifting through the endless night, exposing wrongs to make them right. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show, a beacon where the lost clouds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show, a beacon where the lost grounds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word.